Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Brimlow, and today we're going to review how to solve equations with rational coefficients. There is a copy of the notes linked in Canvas if you'd like to print it and follow along, or you can just watch the video and grab a copy when you get back. Okay, so we're actually going to start on this side of the paper and then go back over here for some practice problems. So the first blank is coefficient. That's the numerical factor in front of a variable. They're being multiplied together. Okay. And the next word is reciprocal. And that is two numbers whose product is 1. So for example, if I did 1/2 times 2 over 1, they look like they've been flipped. When you multiply them, they give you an answer of 1. So when we're solving equations that have a fraction coefficient, you want to multiply each side of the equation by the reciprocal of the coefficient. We know when we finish solving an equation, we want to be left with 1x or just x. Technically, the coefficient is 1, we just don't typically write it. So, for example, 4/5 x equals 8. To get rid of the 4/5, I'm going to multiply by 5/4. And I know what I do to one side, I do to the other. Now here, that gives me 20 over 20, which is just 1. So these cancel out, leaving me with x. Over here, I'm going to rewrite 8 as a fraction, making it 8 over 1. Now, before we actually multiply this, we can simplify it using what we cross-reducing. So what that means is you look at the numerators and denominators diagonally across from each other, and you look for their greatest common factor. Between 8 and 4, the greatest common factor is 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. What this allows us to do is work with smaller numbers, and most likely our final answer will be simplified versus just multiplying across like we typically do with fractions. This is not a necessary step, but it is worth trying to find. So now I'm going to multiply fractions like I would. We multiply our numerators, then our denominators. So 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 1 is 1. So 10 over 1, which is just 10. All right, next one. So 6 over 24m equals negative 1/2. So once again, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So 24 over 6. Those cancel out, leaving me with m. So over here, we're also going to multiply by 24 over 6. So 1 and 6 can't cross reduce. 2 and 24 I can. I can make that a 1. And I can make this a 12 because I can divide both of them by 2. So negative 1 times 12 is negative 12. 1 times 6 is 6. So this simplifies to negative 2 when I'm done. Okay. So once again, when you have a fraction for a coefficient and you get to that step, you want to multiply each side by the reciprocal and simplify. Okay. Now, if I'm working with a decimal, you just are going to follow the same rules for solving equations like we did before with our 2 steps. It's just you need to be mindful of those decimal points. You can use a calculator if you'd like to make it a little simpler. So to get the p by itself, I have to divide both sides by 0.7 because they're being multiplied. So when I do that, I get 7 equals p. Once again, you can use a calculator. I don't expect you to do this all out. Okay. All right, over here, negative 2.4 equals 4. Why? So I'm going to divide each side by 4. This is negative 0.6 equals to y. Okay. All right. We're really focusing on those fractions. That's where I see more issues. With the decimal points, you do have to be careful typing that decimal into your calculator, or if you do actually do the work out. But really where I see we need more practice is with our equations, with fractions. So go ahead and pause this video and try these 3 problems. When you're all set, you can come back. All right. So these are all 2 steps. Well, 2 of them are 2 steps, which is really where we're going. So I like to start boxing my variable term. This is not a required step, just recommended to help you organize your work. So I'm going to start by subtracting 7 on both sides. So that leaves me with 2/3 x plus 0 equals to 4, which is just 2/3 x equals to 4, okay? Now I have a fraction coefficient and we want to be left with 1, so we multiply both sides by the reciprocal because that leaves me with 1x. And what we do to one side, we do to the other, okay? I can cross reduce here. I can make this 2 a 1, can make this 4 a 2 because their greatest common factor is 2. 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 1 is 1, so it's just 6. Okay. Once again, just like we talked about before, it's really important you're showing your steps, showing the work to both sides, that you're keeping your equation balanced, okay? All right, now for this next one, we have 4/5 x equals 9.5. Before I actually do this, when I have a mixed number that I'm going to be multiplying by a fraction, we want to rewrite it as an improper fraction. So I'm going to just bring down this 4/5 x. So 9.5 would become, well, 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19. And then 2 would stay the denominator. So once again, we start by changing the mixed number into an improper fraction. And now I'm going to go ahead and do 5/4 on both sides. These are going to cancel out. Now, there's nothing I can cross reduce here, so I'm just going to multiply across like I would normally with fractions. Once again, you can use a calculator to do calculations, but you still should be showing all of these steps. 19 times 5 is 95. 2 times 4 is 8. You can leave your answer like this. I don't expect you to change it into a mixed number unless it's a word problem. If it's a word problem, your final answer should be a mixed number because that's typically how we would describe units of measure. If you did want to change this, this would be 11 and 7/8. Okay. Last but not least, so two-step equation. So I'm going to go ahead and box this. Now, for this, you can start this a few ways. Just like in the previous problem, I could change this to a improper fraction. Because I have to get rid of this 9, I'm not going to jump there yet, but you could do it and then make 9 a fraction as well. That's just a few more steps, though, before you really need to. So I'm going to start by adding 9 to both sides. Okay. So I'm going to bring down this -5/7 x. That's 0. So when we're adding fractions, mixed numbers, we want to start with our fractions and make sure they have like denominators. Now, really, 9 doesn't have a fraction with it. It's a whole number. So we would just bring down the 1/4. And then 9 plus 3 is 12. Okay. So I have -5/7 x equals to 12 and 1/4. So like we did before, I'm going to change it to an improper fraction so I can multiply it by the reciprocal of -5/7 x. So I'm going to bring this down one more time. 4 times 12 is 48 plus 1 is 49. Then I'm going to multiply this by -7/5. So x equals, those cancel out, leaving me with 1x. Now over here, once again, you might need to use a calculator. I'm going to actually do this first one. 1 second. So 49 times 7 is -343. Don't forget that negative sign. And then 4 times 5 is 20. So you can leave it like this, or if you want to change it, it would be -17 and 3/20. All right. I'm going to just zoom out so you can check all of your work as best I can. So check to make sure that your work matches mine. If you have any questions, please reach out or make sure you touch base when you return to class. Check Canvas to see what you have for practice, and I will chat with you soon.